This is the Great Outdoor Radio Show on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and the 1620 The Zone smartphone apps. The Great Outdoor Radio Show is a production of Great Plains Marketing. Now, here's Mr. Great Outdoors, Greg Wagner.
I'm Larson, our wilderness survival expert. We have no idea what dealing with weather is like. Vancouver Island, British Columbia. Oh, my gosh. It rained 220 some odd days of the 365 last year. And when Sam was there with the other 9 fellers, late fall, oh, my gosh, and rain. And in the last episode on the History Channel, they were holed up in their shelters for 2 to 3 days.
Oh, yes.
None of them came out until the sun came out.
People in California were just crying, please come down here.
That's why we got tough Nebraska and Sam Larson there. There you go. So
the Great Outdoor Radio Show continues on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and the 1620 The Zone smartphone apps. Once again, here's Greg Wagner.
Ow! I can't howl like him. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Great Outdoor Radio Show. You're back with us here on 1620 The Zone. We welcome on the phone line, gosh darn, he's quite the celeb these days, Sam Larson of Lincoln, Nebraska, 22 years of age, one of the final 4 men left on the History Channel's popular Alone show. Sam, I can't howl like you. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
You betcha. You got to give us a wolf howl to start with, as you did in the first episode. Can you do that? Are you ready?
Let's see. It's kind of a bad spot for her right now.
Oh, never mind. You know what? He's probably got that infant son, Alaska, sleeping, and so he can't quite do that. So that's all right. Well,
it's a little bit funnier because I'm in Cabela's right now at the customer service center here, based out of Lincoln, Nebraska. And, that would be pretty hilarious if I just let loose right now.
I would say go for it, but then again, you better not. So, Sam, congratulations.
I think is on YouTube. So.
Yeah, there you go. Sam, congratulations on making it to the final 4 on the History Channel's very popular Alone show. People who aren't even into the great outdoors are watching it. And you might introduce yourself to our audience here once again. Tell us about yourself. We obviously know where you work now, but, you know, we're all rooting for the 22-year-old Nebraskan who is well beyond 3 weeks on Vancouver, British Columbia Island there. But tell us more about yourself.
Well, yeah, my name is Sam here, obviously. I have a beautiful wife, Sydney. Living here in Lincoln, and our new son, Alaska, of course. He's just turned 5 months. So that's my family. As far as survival stuff goes, I actually went to a professional guide training school when I was 18 to kind of learn how to do wilderness survival, how to cook outdoors and lead remote expeditions into remote wilderness areas. And it all kind of took off from there, and I've been doing all this crazy adventure stuff ever since.
How did you get on the History Channel's highly viewed Alone show? How'd you get on that?
It's actually kind of funny. So I have this blog called woodsongwilderness.com, and been writing for there since 2011 for a little bit of time. And one of the casting people sent me an email and called me up and said, hey, I want to tell you about this new show we're casting for. And she said, we're going to drop you into the wilderness alone, no one else around, with your own camera gear, and there's no time limit on the show. Basically, you just live out there until you want to call it quits. And I said, yep, sign me up, hung up, and went about my day. So that was something. There was, at that point, I didn't really hear anything about $500,000 prize money or anything like that, and I really didn't care. It was all just about being able to spend a bunch of time in the great outdoors and really enjoy myself out there if I could.
Awesome.
So, crazy adventure.
No doubt. On Twitter, you can follow Sam Larson of Lincoln at Sam Explores. On Facebook as Samuel Larson. And again, on his blog, woodsongwilderness.com/blog. Sam, we're going to take another time out. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the experience on Vancouver Island after this.
You're listening to the Great Outdoor Radio Show on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and the 1620 The Zone smartphone apps. The Great Outdoor Radio Show continues on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and the 1620 The Zone smartphone apps. Once again, here's Greg Wagner.
We're back on the Great Outdoor Radio Show, 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com. Very special guest today, 22-year-old Sam Larson of Lincoln, Nebraska, wilderness survival expert and finalist on the History Channel's Alone Show. And Sam, as we dig right back into it here, explain to our listeners how Alone worked and what rules were in place for you 10 guys on Vancouver Island and what the producers provided you with.
Sure. So basically, they had 10 of us there. We all kind of had the intentions of going out in the woods and living out there as long as we possibly could, but dropped in separate locations, real far away from each other, basically so that even if we tried our best, we could never reach any of the other contestants. We were completely alone. We had 10 items apiece, so, count them like knife, axe, tarp, cooking pot, things of that nature. And, basically dropped alone to survive as long as you could. We had a satellite phone there, but you can really only use that purposefully if you need to tap out. And so that's not something you really want to do until you absolutely have to. But, the rules were pretty simple. Stay as long as you can. Last one standing wins. So...
What do you say to somebody who says, blah, 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 it's another reality survival show, it's similar, or is it? Similar to Naked and Afraid, blah, 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 it's another reality thing, but this is different, isn't it? Alone is different.
Well, yeah, I think it's completely different. I think it comes from, and it was helped a lot by at least a couple of producers who said, we'd like to make a survival show, but we're not going to make it one of those fake, cheesy survival shows.
Exactly.
We want to be as real as possible. So they picked a legitimate wilderness area, so we were, very, very far from any major roads, very, very difficult to get to our location. And there was no, I guess what you'd call in the industry, TV magic. So some survival shows, they'll drop like a pig or a alligator there from the kill, and it film it as if they've just found it in the wild, and if there's a camera crew around, those guys are eating fat and happy, and they're cheering you up all the time, and there's a good positive presence around at any time. But no, for Alone, it's straight up just solitude, and you're completely out there, as the show says, alone. There's no one in there to give you a hug when you're feeling down, and to even get a crummy song out of your head, during the day. So, it's very, very brutal as far as the solitude goes.
The History Channel's Alone Show airing on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Central Time for an hour, and then it's periodically replayed. You can check your local listings, History Channel, Alone, #Alone Show. Sam, none of you know right now who won the $500,000. You don't know, do you? There's 4 of you left, and so you're watching this as we're watching this, but no one knows who's won, right?
Absolutely. Well, all I know is how long I made it out there. So I don't know anything about any of the other participants. I don't know. I'm clueless, basically, as to what happened with the show. I know I did my time out there. And they gave me a cheeseburger, sent me back to Nebraska, and said, go watch the show. So, I've got no idea what's going on, and just learning as the episodes go.
What were the biggest obstacles to overcome? Those of us who have watched, obviously, weather was huge. There are apex predators on the island. In your view, the biggest obstacles to overcome?
The biggest obstacles, there are a few of them. The first is to keep mentally strong, to not let the solitude kind of get to your head. Although it's kind of thought of as a negative thing sometimes, the solitude out there was good at many, many times. You can use that to your favor and do some really deep thinking about what your purpose is there, and what you want to do, I guess, with your life. And it's very hard in the real world to get that type of thinking, to be able to sit down for a long, long time and just think about your next move. And so that's something that there's a battle. You can use that to your advantage, or you can use that to, or that can be a real struggle for you, and it could tap you out in the end. So that was a huge one for us. And the other one definitely at this point is food. I know it might seem like we're fat and happy right now with, catching fish and crabs and all that stuff, but no, we were still on very, very few calories every day. And it was, even though one big fish looks good on camera, it really doesn't last that long.
What do you think the average viewer can take away from watching Alone on the History Channel?
Probably, if I wanted anyone to take any one thing away, it'd be that, if you really, really, truly push yourself, you'll be able to achieve things that maybe you didn't think were possible before. So, we see survival shows where, maybe they're over in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 1 week or 4 weeks or whatever. But this is just a testing of human capability, right? It's just, okay, well, do your best. And I think should encourage anyone to do their best at whatever they choose to do with their life. So I really hope people take that away from the show more than anything.
Alan from Georgia. Alan K. has been a big hit that folks have resonated with big time. He's had a lot of great one-liners and everything. And one of the things he said, that after you're all situated, after you have built shelter, you've gotten some food, you started fire, you've gotten situated, then boredom, isolation set in, and even after a prolonged period of time, what happens is all the mistakes you've made in your life and your loved ones come to the forefront of your mind. You agree with that?
Yeah, well, Alan's actually a real good buddy. All the guys on the show are just good, solid guys in real life as well. But yeah, it's completely true. It's almost better to be uncomfortable out there because you're not thinking about your family. You're thinking about the task at hand. Whereas when you have a little bit of food in your belly and you're laying in a comfortable bed that you've made, you've used the wilderness as your resource to make yourself comfortable, that's when that really sets in, and it's really, really brutal.
All right, we're going to have some fun now with the audience, Sam. We're going to play Great Outdoor Trivia, which we do a couple times in the 1 hour Great Outdoor Radio Show here on 1620 The Zone, Omaha's Zone Radio. From our good friends in outdoor recreation at Shields, Village Point Shopping Center, West Omaha. Thanks, Dale Merkel, store manager. $10 gift card, Shields cap and T-shirt. Plus, we have a plastic laminator for your Nebraska fishing permit. And from Shields, a small pack of 10 split shot fishing weights for your own survival pack. And from the state's award-winning conservation publication, Nebraska Land Magazine, we have a copy of its Wild Game and Fish Cookbook to add to that pack. Here's the trivia question. I love this, Sam. And it's from Sam Larson of Lincoln, wilderness survival expert, and he is one of the final four on the History Channel's popular Alone show. And here goes with the question. Sam, be quiet back there, down there at the call center in Lincoln. Sam had suggested going on the survival show alone. Sam, you had suggested going on the survival show alone without this piece of gear, to which your lovely wife, Sydney, replied, "You're stupid." Now, Sam thankfully took his smart wife's advice and this to Vancouver Island. What piece of gear are we talking about here? You need to name that for us. First person out of the chute who gets the question correct wins the nice prize pack. Phone numbers to call with your answers, 951-1620, 402-951-1620, toll free, 1-877-951-1620, 877-951-1620.
You're listening to the Great Outdoor Radio Show on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and the 1620 The Zone smartphone apps. The Great Outdoor Radio Show continues on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and the 1620 The Zone smartphone apps. Once again, here's Greg Wagner.
We're in the wilderness, so to speak, a radio version on 1620 The Zone. Yes, Greg Wagner back with you here Have Sam Larson of Lincoln with us today. Sam Larson, one of the finalists in the History Channel's popular Alone show, wilderness survival expert. Sam is a motivational speaker. Sam has traveled, we should say that. And you can reach Sam on Twitter at Sam Explores, on Facebook, Samuel Larson. I think you have a fan page there. And his blog. What's your blog site again, Sam?
The blog is woodsongwilderness.com, spelled just like it sounds.
All right, very good. And Sam, we've had some guesses on trivia. No one's gotten it. Sam had suggested going on a survival show alone without this piece of gear, to which his wife replied, Sydney, you're stupid. So Sam thankfully took his wife Sydney's advice and took this piece of gear to Vancouver Island. Do we want to give the audience any hints, Sam? What hint would you give them?
Here's a really good hint.
Okay.
The only place that the answer has ever been revealed is on my blog.
Ah,
so
there you go.
Greg has read the blog before.
Oh, yes.
It's the only
place
that's ever been released.
All right, 951-1620. Lines are ringing now, 951-1620. Toll free, 1-877-951-1620, 877-951-1620. Sam, what additional things did you learn about outdoor survival that you didn't know before? And you had been, all over North America prior to going on the Alone show and then going to Vancouver Island. But what did you learn on Vancouver that you went, gosh, I never knew this?
Absolutely. I learned Vancouver Island has no easy-to-capture game. They don't have rabbits, Can you even picture a place with no rabbits? That's
no, I can't.
Like, what the heck? Where did your rabbits go?
Interesting.
That was the first question I asked them. Yeah, there's because it's an island. It is kind of isolated from, the continent, and so there are some animals they have there that are just different than other animals. And so while it's easy to hunt with like a bow or a slingshot here in Nebraska, things get real difficult, when there's different game that you're not expecting, and it's, there's maybe a lack of huntable game at some point. So it gets a little weird. So I learned that. I learned that I really need to wash my hands more when I'm in the woods, because they get pretty gross after a while. After 3 or 4 weeks, you really got to wash your hands every once in a while.
In addition to that satellite phone, if when you were ready to leave, when you're ready to tap out, you were given, I think, a life jacket. You were given bear spray, and we need to tell everybody you had no firearms. No firearms were allowed, correct?
Right, no firearms, man. I always say I could have been fat and happy out there if I had like a canoe, a good set of waders, and a shotgun. Like I'd be set, But no firearms, no waders, and of course, as you see, no canoe unless you're talented like Lucas and you can make one.
Yeah, Lucas said that was pretty cool. I was worried about him out there and the tide and the current. I'm like, oh boy. So very, very interesting.
He's an impressive guy, yeah, for sure. They
all are impressive. No doubt about that. With survival in Nebraska, what can we take away from Alone that we could maybe use if we get compromised here in Nebraska for hunting in late fall or winter? We have to survive 2 or 3 days. What tips would you give people? You do a lot of speaking and such. And with the show, what can we take away from that we could use here if we get compromised, say in the sandhills of western Nebraska?
Yeah, well, it actually happens a lot. I've actually been driving through the sandhills and found people before who got lost out there on river trips. So it's not like it's something that doesn't happen. Yeah, well, the first thing I'd say is to make a good bed for yourself if you have to hunker down for the night. The ground is going to sap a lot of energy out of you, a lot of heat out of you, and so you want to have a good bed made out of grass, twigs, leaves, whatever you can find, as thick as you can make, up to maybe 3 feet tall. You're going to want a nice big bed, even before a roof, maybe. So get a nice solid bed going. Besides that, if you can learn how to build a friction fire, that's good. Or, maybe something that'd be a little bit easier is to remember to carry a fire starting kit with you. Anytime you're out there, I always have a knife and a ferrocerium rod tied to me at all times when I'm on river trips, just in case something goes wrong. I can start a fire, build a shelter, do anything I would possibly need out there until rescue came.
What's your favorite quote about a survival situation that applies?
Well, that's a really good question. I have a couple. I actually just published a blog post that has some really good quotes in it. But probably my favorite one, and this is more along the lines of like adventure and really getting out there, living in the wilderness and being a part of it. But there's this great Helen Keller quote where she says, "Security is mostly a superstition, does not exist in nature, nor do the children of men as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing." And that's really a good quote in my mind, and that's one that I like to remember.
All right. I got to bring this up. I think it's on your blog. You didn't really fear the large apex predators on Vancouver Island, not starvation. You were ready to deal with the isolation, but you worried about the tides. The tides. Is that true?
Yeah, tides are the weirdest thing ever. I think to someone who's grown up in Nebraska, experiencing water that comes up and goes back, it's just so strange. Your entire environment changes within a few hours, so it's very, very weird to experience.
Great outdoor trivia round number one. We do have a winner, Sam and everybody. The trivia question, if you're just joining us, that we threw out, and from Sam Larson of Lincoln, Nebraska, our wilderness survival expert, one of the final four on the History Channel's popular Alone show, airing Thursday nights. And the question, Sam had suggested going on the survival show alone without this piece of gear, to which his wife replied, "You are stupid. You're stupid." The lovely Sydney. And Sam, tell everybody what you almost didn't bring, but you listened to Sydney and you did bring.
Sleeping bag.
Right, sleeping bag. And Ty Thompson, a gentleman named Ty Thompson of Bennington, Nebraska, gets it right. Ty Thompson of Bennington. Sleeping bag. Sleeping bag.
I found Bennington.
There you go. So congratulations to Ty's sleeping bag. And we're going to take another time out, another break here. When we come back, Sam, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to say you had 10 pieces of gear that you could select to be taken with you on Vancouver Island for the Alone show. But I want you to nail it down to the top three. If I can give you only three to make it for a while, what would they be? Don't say anything yet. We'll cover that when we come back.
You're listening to the Great Outdoor Radio Show on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and the 1620 The Zone smartphone apps. The Great Outdoor Radio Show continues on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and the 1620 The Zone smartphone apps. Once again, here's Greg Wagner.
Back on the Great Outdoor Radio Show, 1620 The Zone. Might tell you that 1 week from today on the program, it's time to do your preseason prep, hunters. And we're going to chat with Jim Drewliner of Omaha, avid whitetail deer hunter, waterfowl decoy manufacturer, and hunter extraordinaire. You can get your questions ready for Jimmy D, our hunting expert, about preseason prep for the hunting world. That means getting in shape, putting up the trail cameras, and a lot of other things. So we'll cover all those things with Jim Drewliner next week on the program. Special guest today, Sam Larson of Lincoln, Nebraska, 22 years old, a survival expert in his own right, one of the final four individuals on the History Channel's popular Alone show, hashtag Alone show. Follow Sam on Twitter at Sam Explores. Samuel Larson on Facebook. You can become a fan. And we've mentioned his blog, Woodsong Wilderness, woodsongwilderness.com. You can put /blog if you want to do that. All right, Sam, you had 10 pieces of gear to be selected, no firearms, on Vancouver Island for the Alone show, but I want you to narrow it down to 3. I give you 3. What 3 would they be?
Okay, so 3 is like really, really hard.
That's hard, isn't it?
It's such a challenging place to be. You know, there are other places where 3, oh, no problem. Put me on a tropical island with 3 items, and we'll be fine. But 3 out in Vancouver Island is really tough. Pacific Northwest during the rainy season is what it is. So the 3, if I had to really narrow them down, would probably have to be an axe for harvesting firewood, building shelters, mostly, though, harvesting firewood. A tarp, because that can be used for your shelter to make a completely waterproof shelter, and also for a rain catch. You can store gallons and gallons inside a tarp, as you might see I'm doing on the show there. And so you don't have to boil your water. It saves firewood, which also saves energy at that point. And if I had to choose the last one, that's the real toughie. Probably say the ferro rod, or some way to start a fire, right? Because that's just a huge thing, especially when it gets cold. I don't know if you guys noticed last episode, but in one of Alan's scenes, it was snowing over.
Saw that.
So it's cold. So that you definitely need to have some kind of means of starting a fire out there. So those would be my top 3 if I really had to choose between them.
What have been some of the frequently asked questions you've had to answer from fans, friends, relatives? What are some of the reoccurring questions people are asking you that we could answer here on the air?
Well, from last episode, a lot of people were asking how I caught that salmon, actually, because it didn't show it on camera.
Right.
Which may have been my fault, because I didn't catch it on camera. But that's the big question, and basically I just snatched it up out of the river. I just went in there and caught it with my bare hands. So, yeah, that was pretty interesting. If you look at it, it's a pretty grim-looking salmon.
Yeah, it is.
It's spawned out, so it's not the plush, beautiful, like red it used to be. It's spawned out. Going back to the ocean, it's going to die soon. But I caught it, and it wasn't the best tasting thing on the planet, but it was more or less edible. So, yeah, that's how we caught it. We just went out into the river and Jeremiah Johnsoned that guy out of there.
There you go. What are the best foods you found and ate on Vancouver? Of course, I can answer those, but I'll let you answer those questions. The best foods on Vancouver.
Bulk help was pretty terrible, but it is the top 5 still. And kind of an exciting thing, next week I'm setting traps.
I see that.
The preview. So yeah, you'll see, if I caught anything on those traps, and we'll see if it's tasty, or if I think it's tasty after being starving out there for weeks.
The crabs and the spruce tea got my attention.
The spruce tea was delicious. I love that stuff.
Good stuff, Maynard. A lot of vitamin C in that. You might tell everybody, how do you make spruce tea in a survival situation?
Well, it's real simple, and it can actually be done with any real evergreen tree. So you can find any kind of pine out there, you can make that tea. But you basically just, you pluck some branches, process them down a little bit so they fit in your pot, and you boil them until it releases the oils from those needles. And at that point, it's good to drink, full of vitamin C, and just try to keep the dust and bird poop to a minimum, I guess.
Did you have to boil all of your drinking water? Because one of your buds there, one of the 10 guys, he got pretty sick tapping out. He was trying to filter some of the bacteria-laden water that was, I think, kind of on a little feeder creek there through moss, and he was then just kind of drinking, and he got pretty darn sick. Did you boil all your water?
Actually, no. I went in there thinking, okay, it's the wettest place in North America. Why don't I just harvest the rain? So,
yeah,
put out a rain catch, and I stored in that log maybe 6 to 8 gallons. So it was a lot of water storage there. And rainwater in that area does not have to be boiled, so you can drink it straight. So if I ever wanted just a nice cold drink of water, that was always available for me. in my little water catch. But if I made tea, then I would definitely boil it.
All right, we're going to play Great Outdoor Trivia round number 2 with the audience here on the Great Outdoor Radio Show, 1620 The Zone. Appreciate Sam being with us. And from our grand scale outdoor recreation partners at Shields, the Shields store, Village Point Shopping Center just off the West Dodge Expressway to 168th Street, offering another Shields $10 gift card, cap, and T-shirt. One more plastic laminator to protect your Nebraska fishing permit, as well as another small pack of tin split-shot fishing weights for your very own survival pack. And we'll also throw in another copy of that Nebraska Land Magazine Wild Game Cookbook. The trivia question open to all of you. It's survival-based, obviously. Fill in the blank. This is fill in the blank. And it has been mentioned already from our special guest today, Sam Larson, wilderness survival expert from Lincoln. And it's on his blog, too, woodsongwilderness.com/blog. When it comes to long-term wilderness living, it's hard to beat a big, fat blank blank. With the right training, it's possible to achieve fire with a blank blank in any condition. Fill in the blanks for us. If you've been watching Alone on the History Channel, you'll know what it is. In fact, one of the competitors lost his, didn't he? He lost it on the beach. So that's all we can say about that. This round is open to all of you, any of you. Blank, blank. First caller with the correct answer wins. Phone numbers to call with your informed guesses, 951-1620, 402-951-1620, 877 951-1620, 877 951-1620.
You're listening to the Great Outdoor Radio Show on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and the 1620 The Zone smartphone apps. The Great Outdoor Radio Show continues on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and the 1620 The Zone smartphone apps. Once again, here's Greg Wagner.
The electronic campfire has burned very brightly this morning. Greg Wagner back with you here. Great Outdoor Radio Show on the Zone. And we've been visiting with Sam Larson, wilderness survival expert from the History Channel's popular Alone Show, #Alone Show. And we'll get back to Sam here in a moment. You know, Les Stroud, survival expert, always carries his harmonica. But I think Sam was smart not to include a harmonica in his 10 pieces of gear on Vancouver Island for the Alone Show. We need to mention our show sponsors, the great folks who support wildlife conservation, outdoor recreation, wholesome outdoor activities like hunting and fishing here in the Heartland. We have our dear friends at Big Mac, Lake McConaughey, Keith County, Nebraska, where there's plenty of water for outdoor recreation. I love LakeMac.com, Keith County Visitors Committee. Have Dale Merkel and crew at the Shield Store, Village Point Shopping Center, 172nd and Davenport. David Sothan family, Apache Camper Center, Bellevue, Lincoln, Kearney. Online, ApacheCamper.com. Our boat sponsor, Kevin and Rollo Brendan, Premier Boating Center of Lincoln. Ken Stoicich and family, running the best name in meat at Omaha's Stoicich, House of Sausage, Stoicich.com. And we have Gary Kubacek, Country Vet Natural Pet Foods, CountryVetNaturals.com. The others in our Great Outdoor Radio Show family, thank them for their support. Yep, he's a guest next week. Jim Drewliner and his famous Silosox Darn Fine Waterfowl and Turkey Decoys, Silosox.com. And Nebraska Land Magazine, Jeff Curris, editor, NebraskaLandMagazine.com. Playing Great Outdoor Trivia round number 2. Special guest on the horn, too, Sam Larson of Lincoln. And we have a winner, Sam. Survival-based question. Yeah, no doubt, impressive. Fill in the blank. This is from Sam. And from his blog, woodsongwilderness.com. By the way, you can follow Sam, chat with him on Twitter, @SamExplores. Samuel Larson on Facebook. And we just mentioned the blog. Question, fill in the blank. When it comes to long-term wilderness living, it's hard to beat a big fat blank blank. With the right training, it's possible to achieve fire with a blank blank in any condition. And Diane from Lincoln, Nebraska. Diane, is it Koza? Magic Mike on the board? Diane Koza from Lincoln. And Sam, tell everybody what Diane got right.
It's a ferro rod, big fat ferro rod.
A big fat ferro rod, Ferro, and then rod, ferro rod. Congratulations, Diane. Thanks for listening to the Great Outdoor Radio Show. Tuned in to Sam here. And so that ferro rod, is it really true, even in the wet conditions on Vancouver Island for alone, you all seem to start fire fairly well with the ferro rods?
Yeah, exactly. And kind of like that quote said, it's down to training, basically. So, I mean, if you've never done it before, kind of like if you've never driven a car, you won't be able to do it. So it all comes down to that.
That's right. How hard was it as time progressed? Was it more difficult, or did it get easier as time progressed near the end of when you had to finally tap out and use the satellite phone? Did it get much more difficult? Did it level off? Was it the isolation? You just said, that's enough.
Well, the thing that gets increasingly difficult, absolutely, is the fact that you're deteriorating physically, mentally, psychologically. You're just deteriorating in every way, shape, and form. So you're losing weight like nuts. Psychologically, you're a mess after a few weeks, and it's only a matter of time for anybody. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out here.
No doubt, and I think we obviously are on Thursday, this next Thursday night, coming up, 9 to 10 Central Time, History Channel's popular alone show. Is that the finale? Is it this coming Thursday? Is that it?
No, we actually have, and it was episode 6, so we have 4 more episodes of this thing.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So, again, the competitors don't know who won, and they'll be tuning in like we'll be tuning in big time. My wife, Polly, who is hooked on the Alone Show big time, our whole family is, she said, when you first got back to civilization, Sam, I want to know what you grabbed and gorged yourself on. You mentioned the cheeseburger, but when you finally got back here, what did you say? Oh, Sydney, I've got to have this.
Well, the first thing I ate, because it was pretty limited what you could eat, I ate a big old steak. I just,
Yeah, Nebraska guy. Going after the steak,
awesome.
We love that.
And then what I really wanted too was like a cup of coffee and a candy bar. Sugar or caffeine
you bet.
Or carbohydrates, basically. And really, as long as I was out there, so that's something I was craving. And man, I'll tell you what, though, after the coffee and the candy bar, I went to the restroom more times within 24 hours of getting out of that place than I had in the whole time I was out in the woods. So it was brutal on the system, but it tasted real good.
Yeah, for the casual observer that is watching the show that might not do as hardcore stuff as I do or as others do, my wife Polly also brought up going to the bathroom and how difficult that was, perhaps, when it was raining a lot. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. It's actually a little bit interesting when it comes down to that. So I tried my best to always go outside of the shelter, of course, but when it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you have to go, and your shelter floor is mud, sometimes you got to, pick your time and place wisely. But yeah, I mean, it was really easy to go. You just get in your natural human squatting stance, and you go, and it comes out real well. And then you wipe it with just the best moss.
See, these are things that you're only going to hear.
Experience.
You're only going to hear this on the Great Outdoor Radio Show. And
right.
Of course, my sons are wanting to know real quick. The apex predators really didn't, it seems, bother you as much as others. Did you have to contend with bears, mountain lions, or the wolves at all, really?
No, they were not a big deal. For me personally, I mean, I've kind of dealt with them before is the thing. So, kind of like anything, if you have a little bit of experience with it, you're okay. But I've had mountain lions walk through my camp before, and, I've howled with wolves before and had close encounters with black bears before. So you're not comfortable with it, but you're used to it to an extent. So I knew what to do in those situations, and it turned out okay.
Sam, thank you very, very much.